Hello guys and welcome to a video where I'm gonna record Dopa playing TF. It's one of his most recent games. I believe it's the 11th of August. So it was 2 days ago because I'm doing this on the 13th. And he's playing against Zed as a matchup. The exhaust is a peculiar choice of his because generally he prefers running Ignite like I do. And it's due to the nature of the matchup where you think you can kill your opponent early on with Ignite because they're bullying advantageous to the matchup early on for TF, and there are things you can abuse or manipulate for Zed when he ults and such, which we will go more into detail if Dopa fully takes advantage or finds exploitations. I will assume he will start boots and 4 potions, which is a regular start against Zed, as you're utilizing to both dodge out on his shurikens on the Q and to abuse him by poking a lot with your W, which I believe Dopa will do to a large amount of to a large extent early on in the lane. Now they're just invading casually. They're doing it from an angle if someone would ward late or is off positioned into the bush. Dopa is running first because he's running boots and now he chases the Zed, which he will stun, and he can fully go on into chasing him and utilizing maximal damage output to make the Z recall. This also allows them to move further into the jungle to put any vision really late before the game starts to gain different advantages because they know there will be one less member available from the enemy team to counteract their invasion. Rexa is scouting information or faking it out. Dopa is waiting because he assumes Rexa will do a Wraith start, so he will red card them. This also reveals, or you can use it as a fake, that you're leashing the Wraith for your jungler if you red card early. He does maximum leash because he doesn't want to come early on to lane to see if Zed will manipulate the lane towards him. But it still ends up being a shove as the Zed queues or tries to queue him and accidentally queues the minions along, since Dopa is choosing to remain behind the ranged minions at this proximity, so it will be harder for him to not shove if he's looking for a poke on the TF. He blue cards him whenever he's nearby or within W. Here you saw a perfect example of that, where he was standing at this line and the Z came forth, so he selected the first random card, which was red, and it could be to the intention where he could just poke him across immediately and get damage value, but it also could work to shove out the potential of those 3 minions depending on how Z moves out. Since he only moved out, it only hit this minion, and it's still not enough to cause the lane to push, but it can be to cause different manipulations to be allowed as he's moving back. His response as soon as he hits the red is to move back because he has nothing more available to him, so the trade just gets fully disclosed at level 1 and he takes his safety because he's having a cooldown to run back and to potentially dodge out if Zed would max Q range. The lane continues. He lost hit the melee one because it's a broken one and it's starting to push. It pulls the Z forward because he notices that Dopa is trying to make the lane more favorable if it were to crash in. He doesn't want the melee ones alive. Here he tries to Q. Let's look at the trajectory of the Q one more time. Like I said, on the melee minions he's trying to kill them because if they crash in they will get denied. Not this one as of yet. Here he kills the ranged ones as he's shoving the melee ones because they're going into Z in a perfect manner, where they hit the minion and they hit this one. This one is irrelevant because he doesn't want to cause this ones. He wants them alive so he can still crash the wave around this on the next wave. And what this Q does is allowing him to both poke the Z, kill the ranged, and hit the melee ones so he can kill the melee minions before they crash in and get denied by turret, because only the outer ranged minions are the most important one when manipulating the wave and attaining it around this area for Rek'Sai to come in and gank from other places where Zed is more vulnerable from behind. Let's continue the clip. The other minion does crash, like I said. He killed the first one before it crashed, and the second one he had easily pick up because it was a bit over half HP, so he allowed it to crash, and the wave is still shoving because of the two minions that are being set above. And it will freeze the lane, like I said, at this vicinity, which still makes it really easy for Dopa to gank the Z. And he's already winning in health pools and potions. He hasn't used a single one, and I believe he's a bit above Z, if not equal, and Z has already procced one of his potions while the lane is at a disadvantageous position for the Z. Here he moves in most of the minions because this is his most safety, and if the Z would W auto him, it would proc the cannon, the melee ones, and all the ranged ones. But however, if he was standing at the ranged, he would not be allowed as easily to manipulate the wave, and the cannon and melee ones might not turn because they're too far away. He dodges out on one of the Q because Zed chose a really bad angle, but he gets hit by the one from the shadow. It's still fine though. He knows the Z has no cooldown, so when he autoed this minion, he instantly moved upwards to bait the Z to come in. Z saw the read and he moved backwards, so he was not allowed to poke with the first instant W card, which worked out because it was blue, so it would have been extremely good if he got that poke off, as it's the most maximizing damage and just refunds his W at this point, as it doesn't really offer much. And he doesn't want the red one to keep the wave shoved in, so he's just manipulating the wave here. But Zed saw through it. He notes that Dopa chose to auto attack the minion while standing here, and it made Zed see that TF was autoing from this position, which makes him frozen, and that's why Zed managed to hit the Q without Dopa dodging, because he freezes himself here while proceeding with the auto attack, which is unfortunate, but it means that the Z is a really high level, and he knows that when you auto attack you're standing still, so he fully took advantage. So both are playing really well, except that Z is losing out somewhat on the trades and the lane manipulations in case if the junglers would crash in. The Q was a response to poke him and manipulate the wave on Dopa's perspective. He's still keeping the ranged minions alive, as you can see, so the minions can still be around this for Rek'Sai to gank. The most favorable if in this situation where the Z is really overextended and he's used his W. But however, Rek'Sai chose to go for a wolf clear, which puts him further behind, as Dopa would have preferred him to go for for Wraiths red blue and then be around the Wraith area, because now if Rek'Sai wouldn't have gone for this path, the Rek'Sai could have been around those three areas, and he could have ganked now the Z coming in from this or here, because Z did his W and he overstayed and Dopa got to toss his card. But the Rek'Sai chose a longer path to clear before he goes for his initial gank or scuttle, so the play is delayed and the Dopa still tries to keep the wave for Rek'Sai to gank in perfect position for the Z. He stuns the Z and pokes him. He doesn't want the Z to be on full HP to put pressure, and if Rek'Sai would still gank, since it's favorable, it could be a really good gank coming off. Those two are Z manages to shove in the wave with 3 broken minions that get successfully killed by the turret. And now Rek'Sai comes in after the wave is crashed, which is really, really bad for the jungler and for TF, because Dopa was holding the lane so long, but because he did the wolves, he could not gank earlier, and Dopa missed out on 3 minions, freezing it perfectly at this vicinity for Rek'Sai to gank. So, like I said, the minion wave was here for the most duration, but since Rek'Sai unfortunately chose to do wolves, it delayed him, and now Rek'Sai is here when the wave have already been crashed in, and Dopa lost 3 minions off it. So Dopa played it really well. The Zed did really well early on so far, but the jungler just didn't match Dopa's expectations. He gets the minion and the lane resets. It's still in a okay position. The Zed used his W. Dopa instantly reacts. As he used W, you can see Dopa moving forward, stunning and exhausting him, making it easy for the jungler to come in and gank. Both me and Dopa are surprised at the Rek'Sai's flash, and they proceed the chase onto the Zed. The Zed is trying to get denied, but Alistar will deny that possibility. Dopa knows it's an overextended play, so he tries to go for the wave to shove it out instead, which is the correct play because he will not get assist or anything, so it will be a time loss. So if he can manage to shove out this wave and the coming wave to crash in and make the Zed miss potential gold and experience, it still becomes a positive play for him as the Zed has burned his flash and it reduces Zed's incoming level pressure coming in with the ult at level 6. Here he manages to do so. At level 5 it gets increasingly easier to kill the minions with Q, and he goes to the recall. The why? Why Dopa? I believe that wasn't warded, so he cancelled his recall and extends his backing for no reason there because Ivan missed. If Ivan would not have missed, you would have put the indication that there would be a ward coming in this bush. That's really questionable by Dopa. But let's look quick at the... Okay, so the ZWs. Dopa moves instantly forward and exhausts him as soon as he Ws. He doesn't care how much damage, he doesn't care about the play, doesn't care about the all-in. He knows Rek'Sai is coming from top instantly, which you can see Rek'Sai moving down from the minimap. So as soon as he tosses, Dopa moves forward to exhaust him. Perfect play from Dopa to punish the jungler. I mean the mid laner, sorry. He fails to lock in the first yellow card, but it doesn't matter because if Zed would flash forward, the Rek'Sai could still flash and stun him, and then they could set up the kill at this, at around this, because Zed flashes, and then Rek'Sai will catch up with his burrow and stun him, and Dopa doesn't matter if he failed the first card because the Zed is exhausted and he doesn't have any W. So the Zed thinks that his best play is to bait them forward, return to the W, and then proceed to go to this, which leads to the chase. Which you will see just unfolds. As I said, he flashes the Q to minimize damage because the stun is only 1 sec, and it proceeds to lead to the chase later on. Now let's return to real time where Dopa recalled and cancelled his recall against the Ivan for no reason. Rod is the most optimal damage against Zed because you don't really need damage to kill him. You need to survive his combo and you can still 2-rotate kill him or bait him into turret into killing him. Plus Dopa runs exhaust, so his game plan probably isn't to win the lane by killing Zed solo, but rather to manipulate and set up with Rek'Sai the double CC and slow him with exhaust to provide an alternative CC source and kill the Zed through different means. Now the wave is crashing a bit too deep, so he was thinking whether to shove it out, but he pulled towards his worst judgment and he knew that he could only maximum miss the first minion crashing him because the first three were crashing, so he can kill one before the second one crashes, and then he will have stuff up to kill the third one. So at most, the cost uh, for keeping the lane here would be one minion moving in, which he could not grab. So at the cost of 20 gold, he chose to keep the minion wave here rather than pushing it. He gets the cannon, which is good. The Z is still being kept at bay. The Z moves up to shove him, but instantly moves back as the wave crashes, and Dopa chooses to crash the wave now, as the Z has no cooldowns. Z doesn't have his W up to potentially kill him, and Dopa knows he can crash the wave swiftly with the long cooldown coming off of Z's W, and that that his Rexa was close if something um, would occur. However, the Rexa moved down to the Golem, so he doesn't have that safety, but Zed doesn't know that, and since TF moved up, he can assume that Rexa is positioned closely, if he makes the assumption of that, and how Dopa is playing, or that he just knows that Dopa can crash now that he chose to poke the TF rather than maintaining the wave, because it broke the maintenance of the wave, which allowed TF to shove in, since Zed is in level 6 and he can't really kill Dopa at this stage. And at level 5 onwards, TF shoves insanely quick the wave, based off your opponent's cooldowns. Now he looks towards top, and he instantly ganks the Rumble. The Cho'Gath hits the stun. They appear to be lacking damage. However, the Cho'Gath was level 6, which ended up being the difference, because I can't really read Korean if Rumble flashed or not, which made the Dopa gank even though it was pretty steep, but it must have been the level difference of him knowing that Cho'Gath was winning and he was one level up, so they could kill the Rumble, and he instantly trusted the Cho'Gath to make the play. However, the Cho'Gath did not need to Q him before TF come, unless the Rumble stun was there, because the Rumble was positioned towards the wall. And since he's positioned towards the wall, he's zoning himself, and the radius to hit his Q would become so much easier for the Cho'Gath on the Rumble, knowing that he doesn't have flash. If that statement is true, because I don't read really Korean symbols. He comes back to lane. He plays it standard. He shoves it out against the Z because he's at a level advantage, and the Z hasn't really showed much pressure or poke him since he returned to lane, and he wanted to go and spend a perfect 1000 amount into a blasting and refillable, which would have been my uh, my first choice anyway. I'm babbling on. He has cooldown on ult. He doesn't follow his team into the jungle because he would rather let the Alistar die, because there's not much he can do for him. This, however, opens up the possibility to dive a weak level 5 Kalista, which is beyond his control as well. Rek'Sai tries to help, which I will see if they can get something from it, but I'm just gonna assume Rek'Sai is gonna die for free as well, and for no cause, because the Rek'Sai would assume the Z is moving down for the Kalista, or make the assumption that the Z assumes Rek'Sai would move down. However, the Rexa could have moved up towards the middle, and they could have proceeded to shove for the middle wave and abuse Zed weaknesses in a 1v2, because they would know the information of Zed moving downwards towards the bot lane to make the dive complete, or assume if Rexa is helping the Kalista, they would make a 4v1 downwards, which potentially would have taken the turret, but then they could have traded the turret for the mid one. But since Rexa was in the bottom, it saved the bottom turret, and it prolonged the play too much, and Dopa got free farm and XP either way. So for Dopa, this was the correct decision. For Rek'Sai, it's questionable because it gives a kill, but they could have traded turrets instead, and that would have opened Dopa to do things elsewhere rather than being restrained in lane, because then he can manipulate the wave different and seek more aggressive vision or roams, which would have enabled him to do stuff elsewhere. While while the enemy bot lane probably would have swapped and his bot lane would have followed them, while Dopa would probably favor to go bot. Here, Dopa baits with W. He doesn't care if Zed ults right away or gets stunned. It's irrelevant. He baits for the Zed to ult him, so he can instantly exhaust and the Rek'Sai can come, so they can kill him. Perfectly played by Dopa to bait the Zed with the cost of his W. Because with the exhaust and the added CC with Rek'Sai, he will have soon another W coming up, and he has both flash and ult to close out the kill at a later stage of Zed. He proceeds to push the lane as the Rek'Sai is close vicinity to the Ivern and was tailing his movements. So it allows Dopa to go for the turret and to shove in the wave for free, as he knows where his jungler is and where the Ivern was. Here he goes for a super aggressive play onto the Ivern, but is denied as the Rek'Sai had cooldowns, which he assumed he didn't, and it ended up being really questionable and a poor play of the Dopa's making, because he made it swiftly and assumed his teammates would be swift with the decision and agree, as they were pinging and they were close to the Ivern, but his expectations of where his team was positioned or the capabilities was misread, and he probably feels let down because he he makes decisions really quick, and most of them are high level and they should be made with quick decision making. But this one was of poor example, and it led him to burn the flash, being low, not having recalled yet, and it can allow the Zed to come in back. It pulls, however, all randomly the Saya mid, so it allows their bot lane to get free reign. He recalls at a really safe distance to not risk anything. He watches his um, he watches his team and how they play to get maybe future information on how the enemy used their projectiles and such, or just out of sheer curiosity while killing time while regenerating. He bought Boots of Swift not because it's his prime choice, there are better choices in this game, but because he wants to do something quick, knowing that everyone is topside. This allows him to come quicker bot lane and kill someone, because he was running only 600 gold. And 600 gold usually can make you skip Sorceress or Tabi, because you want your T2 and then you can utilize them quickly. And in this case, it actually helped him to roam bot and help his bot lane secure the Zed. And now it's putting out more pressure because the Ivern needs to calculate how speedy this is. And the Rek'Sai get free reign in the jungle now that they have killed the Zed. His bot lane is coming on now with the recall, and they're shoving out his team and him. The Rek'Sai is overstaying for questionable means. The Kalista is baiting. This might be up being good, but he's quite tanky. The Rek'Sai randomly ults. Dopa proceeds to chase because he knows the Cho'Gath is TPing in. Cho'Gath misses his Q. Ivern put a good bush, and this concludes the play. The Zed wants to wrap around, which is a mistake because it ends up burning his W for free. The Ivern proceeds to put Q, which is good. It allows them to secure the Rek'Sai relatively free because Rek'Sai is, again, really questionable in his pathing and decision making. And it allows the mid lane to zone Dopa's team. Dopa is playing it well because he's not being hit and he's baiting at the max range and using his teammates as a buffer to make his plays happen and stun them from a long distance. Oh, there he accidentally stepped too much forth in instead of doing an auto attack. He waits to not card the Rumble as the Rumble is dead and rather choose to stun the Saya. Dopa proceeds to do a really poor executed ult, but it ends up burning the Ivern flash because Ivern is questionable as well, and instead of roaming up with his bot lane, he stays to burn his flash against Dopa for no apparent reason. So the only thing I think I got from Dopa playing that team fight was he played really well at the max range of his teammates and using them, but his teammates and both junglers are actually really fucking bad at positioning and decision making. The only exception was their Ivern concluded the execution kill on Rek'Sai. And then you could have... Wait, let's just look a bit back on it so I can exemplify. Here he stuns the Zed. They get him down. Or no, he stuns someone else, sorry. It was on cooldown. Here he rotates the card. The Rumble is dead, so he waits. So he misses the rotation willingly so he can auto-attack the Rumble, which is then high level. And then he ults here for no reason instead of ulting like here. Because he looks at Trundle's movements, right? And the Trundle is obviously moving upwards. But if he ults here, the Rumble will turn instantly here. However, if he ults in the middle, it will confuse Rumble because he can still card him at this range, and even if Rumble were to, I don't know, reach a bit further into the wall, he can stun him around this area over the wall. While on the other hand, it applies the same logic to the one leading to the Saya, because then he can stun him here if Rumble would be here or Flash. So this one would be the, if I just remove all the unnecessary signs, sorry. If he would stun the, if he would port here instead of here, it would have been much better. Oh, the Trundle even turns and he clicks. Then we see a perfect replay of Ivern being boosted. He's actually saying something about Rek'Sai, yeah. The Rek'Sai is just really fucking bad in my honest opinion. Both his pathing and decision making have been really low this game. He proceeds to shove out the wave. Another wave isn't crashing in, so he chooses to recall. He watches what his bot lane does, and Rek'Sai dies again. Oh, that's jungler. Notice here that he doesn't opt in to go Sheen, which is unusual because he usually goes Sheen into Zonia against that, but he'd rather prioritize division with Pink Ward and then some CDR. Well, the Sheen would have given CDR as well, but he really prioritizes division because he hasn't provided his team with a Pink. I would have opted for the Sheen to try and do something with my lead because they are running relatively squishy champion, except with Trundle and Ivern scaling up a bit. But it's more to punish their front line from crashing in because they have a really hard crashing in front line that he can abuse with damage, kiting backwards with his team. Why is Cho'Gath prioritizing to Q the Ivern? The Ivern just shielded himself, like, you burn the mana, you burn the cooldown, you basically trade mana. Interesting. The Ivern tries to set up bushes at around 3/3 on the lane and abuse a potential setup. Dopa lets the last minion just crash in because there's no point pushing beyond that to welcome your own death. He follows them through fog of war. He wards just in case to see how they crush in and come towards their bot lane. He's doing the maximum distance around the wall to come in as furthest and as quickest as possible in. He plays around the respect of Ivern queuing him as he steps back and forth and stuns the Saya, patiently waiting. He successfully stuns the Rumble and manages to close them down. I believe he will flash. No. Okay. The Z comes in. No, this is good from Dopa. That's a really late flash which will actually kill him. But I think he was dead anyway because he was too slowed. That flash was really bad and he moving up. Because he isolated himself from the team. I thought he would go for the aggressive play onto Saya flashing to try and kill her. But his team had really poor vision on the side of the Z coming in, and then the enemy team turned it around. And then it ended up being Dopa just killing himself and burning the flash for no reason really late. So another poor usage of Dopa flashing with TF. This makes it 2 flashes he could have, well, avoided to waste for no reason. And one of them actually got him killed, which is worse. The other one just wasted a bit of time. Actually, the other one could have saved more teammates if they didn't go for the initial play, because they were playing around the jungle when he recalled and watching them die at the T2, similar to this team fight. So both have been in the blue golem area in their jungle. He shoves mid, but he doesn't want to stay there because they got a really heavy engaged team comp and they can catch him off guard as there's no vision. So he thought about opting in towards the safer lane, but saw that Cho'Gath was opting in for it as well. And Cho'Gath has worse wave clear potential and setup, so he just proceeds to come back to mid. But he would have favorably been going bot lane, so he can ult or crush in, with them making a mid play, not vice versa, as they have no vision, so it's harder for him to react to a play and set up before the enemy team dictate the pace, because he can only do reactionary ults rather than aggressive ones with the lack of vision and the quick rotations the enemy can do between mid and bot after shoving it in, where he needs to deal with the crushing in wave and reset. This allows the enemy team to take the dragon because of Rek'Sai and Cho'Gath pursuing a kill. He thinks about crushing, returning over the wall in case if something would be there, but then he chooses to instantly react and walk towards the mid lane through the narrow path as soon as the Rek'Sai and Saya clicked backwards, because he noticed their movements, and then it told the tail that they did not want that to proceed anything further. And the risk of him dying over wall from the bush was basically nullified, because he was being cautious of it first, which you could see him sidestepping back and forth. He looks towards the top lane. It's a juicy lane. He questions his team's decision. That ult was bad, but because the Trundle was stunned by the Alistar passive, it worked. Oh, the Z played beautifully. Dopa can't do much in this team fight. His team is really behind, and they're getting actually destroyed. They 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 went too hard on the Rumble. I mean Trundle, sorry. And the Trundle is basically unkillable. Rumble traded his life for 4. I did not really see how it went down, but his team probably went all in for the Rumble later on. The Z though, hang on, let me pause 1 sec. Oh, the Z played beautifully. So the Z, Dopa was around this area. He stunned Z, who had his W here. So when the W was tossed, he pressed his living shadow, The gold card then changed direction to follow his shadow, and then he ulted to negate it. The Z played really well. He poked them and then he reacted and baited the Dopa's W. Dopa played it correctly because he should try to go for the stun on Z so the Z can't go in and help his team. But the Z played it really well and just nullified and made the Dopa have cooldown on W, and the Q won't really do much at this point or team fight because of their enemy team comp. The Ivern shielding. Only if they have someone locked down and they're focusing, will wildcards ever do much at this point? So he basically made Dopa useless that team fight. But Dopa really didn't have strong options anyway. His team was fucking up and they spent too much on the Trundle. But I need to give props to the Z, who played really well. There he maximizes his Q to get the further one with the side card. His teammate is dead, so he notices the bot lane is taking the top wave, which he would have preferred because it's larger. But since they're moving there and it's closer to Baron, in case they weren't taking it, but obviously they are, it would favor them more. And the dragon was recently killed as well, so their only option is to shove out the side lanes. Dope already shoved out the mid lane as furthest as possible he could, before they choose to how to use their Baron buff. He's gonna stay for until this wave, as yeah, Rumble pushes it accordingly, as he should. Since I believe the team vision is around the bottom side, because they set up earlier on the play killing the top laner in jungle of Dopa, and then they moved on to the mid team fight where his team forced, so their vision should be more bot centric, is why Rumble returned to the bot lane. His team is just making it really hard for him to do anything at this point, and the team comp is really hard for him to even execute any squishy. As Zed is relatively good against TF, and Saya can just ult whenever. Saya holds her ult because she knows she's not in danger. Dopa wants to get a quick kill on Rumble, but Rek'Sai does for the first time anything good in this game and solos out the Rumble. And as soon as the kill is concluded, they should run mid. However, Rek'Sai was a bit low, so he lifesteals off the golems. He instantly reacts and flashes onto the Saya, which is a beautiful and perfect play over the wall. I would have done the same exact thing. And it ends up with making the Trundle and Zed trying to help the Saya and try to conclude onto the enemy team. However, the team fight after that point, let's see how it was played. He comes in, he flashes. The Kalista is really far back, so even if the Z now goes in, which he shouldn't, the Sai is dead. Let her die. The Z goes in for no reason, gets CC'd, exhausted. Ults really late for no fucking reason. They get the Cho'Gath, yeah, big whoop. The Trundle plays correctly. Unfortunately, Dopa gets a quick yellow card and stuns him. Else his botlane probably would have turned to pick him up. But their team was split and they made a perfect ace of it. The correct play against Baron buff is always to pick the solo laner and have your team set back backwards to the turret in case they hard engage like the enemy did, which is a huge mistake and disrespectful against TF, who can easily come quickly by and do flashy plays like this flash over wall to your ADC, who no longer has ult. It was perfectly executed by both his team for the first time, that his team actually showed they can do something, and that Dopa had perfect decision making, killing the Rumble, denying the split push pressure with the Baron buff, and then possibly doing a 5v4, which he wants to, and their team wants to, and they baited the enemy team to proceed to diving the turret, which is a huge mistake, especially with the forward team, because they're not playing to Saya's strengths, they're denying her. and if they go too forward, all the other ones are more tankier, they have more flash out options, and the ADC just ends up blowing her ult, which ended up with Dopa coming back and flash killing her over the wall, which secured the team fight. And then the Zed was like, hey, I'm over, stay and die, too. Since it's not enough with Saya, Trundle, Rumble, and Ivern being later chased and killed, I should die and lose Baron buff too, just because of a Cho'Gath. So they traded and they concluded their entire Baron buff. Now he proceeds to his standard build where he completes. This is his core build against Zed for those who doesn't know, but he usually prefers to go Sheen. And Swiftis was only a choice because he was only sitting on 600 gold. That's when you want to utilize to speed up play with the initial speed or the T2 empowered stats, which allowed him to pick off Zed in the bot lane, if you remember earlier from the replay. Else this is his standard go-to build of those three items, but it's usually in the concession of Rod, Sheen, Zonia, then complete Lich Bane. But he valued the pink ward, which led to the later Sheen, since he wanted vision for his team. Here he zones himself, the enemy team overcommits, and he baits beautifully with the Zonia. His team, however, are incredibly lacking in damage despite the overreach, and it ends up being a really bad team fight. The enemy team was stacked, but so was his team, so it made it really good for the Psy ult, which you saw on Dopa and his team because she pulled all the feathers back. It was good for the Rumble setup, it was good for the Shadows of Zed, it was good for Daisy, it was good for Trundles to slow everyone. And Dopa was zoning himself, so even though he blew a lot of them, they lost one of their damage dealers for 2.5 seconds. And his team lacked heavily in damage, which led to him surviving and just watching his teammates die, even though he managed to bait and believed that the abilities and damage he nullifies through the bait would be outscaled by then the later damage his team would put out, but it was a huge miscalculation as he zoned himself, he did not get any damage done, and his team was just incredibly lacking in putting any realistic damage out. He proceeds to shove out the lane and then he knows he can recall for Lich Bane. Okay. The audio of the replay kind of went random. He still keeps an space for a pink ward. His team wants to overstay and help giving Dopa the blue buff, but the enemy team successfully managed to take it. He zones himself behind his team in case they hard engage, because he isn't strong, neither is his team. The Rek'Sai proceeds to again throw. Holy shit, that Rek'Sai is so bad, like I can't... I'm having a hard time watching the Rek'Sai, honestly. The Rek'Sai basically all end Ivern, who they lacked damage or had any realistic attempt on killing. The Kalista isn't close enough to ramp up damage or kill, and the Dopa doesn't really do that much damage as of yet because they got scaled. He manages to flash the Psy ult, but it doesn't really amount to much. He wants to see if he can ult somewhere to kill the wave, but decides to recall to base, which is the best choice, so he can speed himself up and see if he can save the inhibitor after. He tries to Q as many people as possible. That's why he's using the indication to queue Rumble and see if he can pull this middle and side card from how the enemy team were positioned. However, the guy from the middle and Saya reacted, so only Rumble was hit because he was AFK attacking the inhibitor, and he just pulled his shield up to negate. The Rexa is dead again, holy shit. He's cautious with taking the pink. He checks if someone's in the bush. Which doesn't make sense, he doesn't have Ludens. You can still hear, I believe, the audio of it, but at that point you're already dead if they were in the bush. So that's more a realistic usage of Luden's Echo to see if it procs. So as you queue, you move backwards, and then you move inwards as soon as it passes. Proceeds to shove out the top lane, so you get more visual information. He recalls. He ramps up to get 25 more AP. The damage is the only valuable since his team is heavily lacking in it. He doesn't want the mana regen or 60 HP because it's what's the word? Negligible at this point. Like it wouldn't really matter. They really need the damage because they're not getting any damage onto the enemy team or killing them, which he knows. So he's just selling to ramp up as much damage as he possibly can before the Baron to see if they can fight it, because if they lose the Baron, that's probably the game. They will at least get 2 inhibs with 1 open. They'll proceed to take top lane, take the 2 turrets, take top inhib, then rotate mid, and possibly set up for bot later on with the remainder of the buff, or see how long they can stall. So Dopa knows with his team this is the best team fight they can take, with them ramping up magic debuff. Dopa accidentally or willingly runs back into the rumble buff, but he just ends up watching his team basically dying. He can't do much in this game or at this point. Like this game is more dictated on the enemy team comp and his team because they have denied him a lot. They are not really doing any much in team fight, and he's just left with a really lacking team and not enough damage to even solo out anyone because they're just too hard to kill at this point. Thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed me analyzing Dopa on some of his plays, for example early on in lane or later on in game decisions, or he got denied by his team, the two poor flashes or any kind of execution he made that I pointed out from my perspective, let me know and comment in the section below for me to make more awesome videos of analyzing Dopa. And by the way, for those who don't know me, I'm a Diamond 1 Master OTP. I believe I'm the closest one to play the Ignite style of Dopa, since I don't see anyone else exhibiting it. I may be criticized for saying that, but I have my own cocky standards when it comes to this, or being self-arrogant. However, if you enjoyed me analyzing the Dopa vid, just let me know and I'll do more in the future. Thanks for watching, and I see you guys in the next video.